What do we mean by efficient code? Good news, in most cases, code that is faster for the programmer to write in MATLAB is also faster for MATLAB to execute. So when we say efficient code, we mean it's more efficient for the programmer to write code in MATLAB that is vectorized, and it's also faster for MATLAB to execute vectorized code. So keep in mind some really important things that help out with efficient code in MATLAB. First of all, the scalar and array operations, using logical vectors, using the built-in functions with vectors and matrices, and pre-allocating vectors when you know how long it's going to be. Operations on vectors and matrices. We can perform numerical operations on vectors and matrices. For example, if you have a vector variable, you can say vec plus 3, and that's automatically going to add 3 to every element. Scalar operations, for example, scalar multiplication, you can say a matrix times 3, and again, that's automatically going to iterate through all of the elements in the matrix, multiply each one by 3. The array operators perform operations term by term or element by element, so that means that the two arrays have to be the same size, arrays meaning vectors or matrices. With addition and subtraction, you can just use the plus and the minus for the array operations, but for any operation that's based on multiplication, you have to put the dot in front of it. So dot star or dot asterisk for multiplication, dot slash for division, and dot and the little caret symbol for exponentiation. So again, those are all array operations when you have two arrays that are the same dimensions and you want to perform the operation term by term or element by element. Keep in mind also these really useful functions: sum, prod, cumsum, cumprod, min, max. So for all of those, in most languages, you'd have to write the code yourself. You'd have to loop through vectors or matrices in order to perform that operations, but we have these built-in functions in MATLAB. The functions any, all, and find that are basically working with logical operations, those are really efficient also. The diff function that gives you differences between elements in a vector, that's really useful and efficient. And all of the is functions that return logical 1 for true or 0 for false. There's some ways that you can check code in both scripts and functions for inefficiencies. There is a function called check code that does that, and that's same as the information in the code analyzer reports. If you want to find out how long it takes to execute code, MATLAB has built-in functions called tick and tock. So you start with tick, you end with tock, and in between it will time how long it takes for the code to run. So here's a script that has tick, and then it has a running sum variable, mysum, which is initialized to 0. We have a for loop that is a pretty long for loop where we're adding each value of I to the running sum. So tock at the end will time how long it actually takes to execute that code. Keep in mind that how long it takes to execute is going to depend on what else your computer is doing. So if you've got a bunch of other stuff running in the background, that's definitely going to affect the time. So you need to be careful about this, and you need to, for example, do it a bunch of times and average. Make sure you turn other things off before you do this. Just be mindful of that. There's also a profiler that'll generate detailed reports on execution times of codes.